Hello everybody, we're over in the book of Luke chapter 8 and I'm still learning out this YouTube thing, and it looks like we've only got a certain amount of time before we have to cut it off. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and get started in the text. It's going to be over in Luke chapter 8 verse 22 is where we're going to get picked up right now. So Luke chapter 8 verse 22. Luke chapter 8 verse 22. So here we are. This is where Jesus is going to calm the storm. Let's just get started with the text and we'll start talking about it. One day he, that's meaning Jesus, got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." So they set out, and as they sailed, he fell asleep. And a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. And they went and woke him, saying, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was a calm. He said to them, "Where is your faith?" And they were afraid, and they marveled, saying to one another, "Who then is this that he commands even winds and water, and they obey him?" Here we are, we're in the text of the book of Luke over in chapter 8, and basically what's going on is Jesus with his disciples, he decides to get into a boat and go over to the other side. And as he's going along, he falls asleep in the boat, which is pretty cool because it speaks of his humanity. Here is God in the flesh, but yet in his humanity, he gets tired just like us. I mean, if you think about it, he's in public ministry and everyone's just pressing for his attention. One of the problems that pastors have, or different people of influence for that matter, they're always being pressed for their time. And it becomes exhausting. That's why you find out so many different actors that decide to retire at an early age because they're just tired, they're burned out. Here is Jesus, God in the flesh, ministering to the people all around him, trying to lead and to disciple these disciples, and he's tired. He's rocking in a boat back and forth, and he falls asleep. Well, you know the story, what's going on here. The winds and the waves start rocking and roaring. There's a storm that brews on the sea there, and the winds and the waves are rocking and rolling. You got to keep in mind, these fishermen, these disciples of Jesus, they've been out on the lake before. They know that if it's a bad storm or if it's not. So for us to stand back 2,000 years removed and say that, you know, these guys, they didn't know any difference, that's mockery. That's wrong on our part, because these were fishermen. They knew the lake, and they would know if it got to be pretty bad. Personally, I've been on the water before when a storm comes by, and it can be frightening. I've been on the water before where waves and lightning and the rain just going sideways, so much so that it was frightening. Let's just say I was scared. My wife was scared. My kids were scared. We were in prayer asking that the Lord please deliver us from it. And he did. He certainly did. But notice what Jesus does here. Verse 24. And they went and woke him, saying, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And he awoke, and guess what he does? With a word, Jesus rebuked the wind and the raging waves. With a word. And they ceased. And there was a calm. What's so cool about it is it shows that even in the storms, the winds and the waves obey Jesus. And allegorically speaking, spiritually speaking, as believers in Christ, we're going to have storms that's going to come upon our lives. Who has the power to calm it, to give you peace? When you look to Jesus, he does. You know, my wife and I and the kids, as we were we got the news about COVID. And my wife and I, we were looking at each other, and sure enough, COVID was starting its storm through our home. And eventually all of us, all 6 of us got it. We all became sick. But there was a moment where my wife and I, we looked at each other and we're like, what are we to do? If you watch the news and you watch all the media, it got to the point where we didn't know what to believe or to listen to or what direction. And her and I, we both agreed that we're just going to trust the Lord in this. We're just going to trust him and look to him. And you know, even though the storm of COVID was going through my home, so to speak, spiritually speaking, there was a great calm and peace that came over my home because my wife and I, we chose to just trust the Lord. He says, how can you add one single hour to your life by worrying about it? You can't. And we just agreed that thy will be done. Whatever it is, thy will be done. And you can have that same kind of peace. And you can have that same kind of calm in your life. But you just got to look to Jesus. You got to trust in Him. Doesn't mean He's going to remove the storm. But it does mean when you trust in Him by faith, there will be a great peace that comes upon you. And it's only by trusting in Him. So I encourage you today to trust in Jesus if you've never trusted in Him. If you're looking at this life to try to satisfy you, it's going to rock you. It's going to roar you. It's going to cast you from side to side. And it won't care about you. But if you trust in Jesus, you'll have the peace that surpasses all understanding. You'll marvel at Him. So I encourage you to do that today. Thank you for watching.